Now we are going to talk about the similarities and differences between assertive discipline and discipline with dignity. A similarity between assertive discipline and discipline with dignity is that they focus on respect and treating students with respect. That is a core of both of the approaches. Also, they emphasize building positive and trusting relationships between students and teachers. The goal of both of these approaches is that to create an organized and structured environment where students can learn and teachers can teach. There are clear behavioral expectations in both assertive discipline and discipline with dignity that are taught through modeling by the teacher. They're taught through direct instruction, practicing, and positive reinforcement is huge. Both assertive discipline and discipline with dignity have the goal of minimizing verbal confrontations and power struggles between student and teacher because they want to protect the student dignity. Students should not be embarrassed. If there is an issue in the class, that cannot be resolved just within the moment by ignoring or some other way of handling the behavior, that the student should be talked to after class in private and not be called out in front of his or her peers. Both assertive discipline and discipline with dignity have the understanding that not all students can be reached through both of the programs, though both assertive discipline and discipline with dignity do offer some support and some suggestions for how to deal with the chronically misbehaving students. There are some key differences between assertive discipline and discipline with dignity. Assertive discipline is more of a canned program. It's very structured, it's very systematic. You follow these rules, you have these consequences. Whereas discipline with dignity is more of an approach. There are guidelines, there's some flexibility, and most importantly, teacher discretion is a large part of the approach. Assertive discipline is more of an obedience model. So students are taught to follow rules because they are taught to comply. They are not taught the value behind why they should follow the rules. And sometimes these students then learn how to not get caught. Discipline with dignity operates on a responsibility model. So students are taught critical thinking skills, they're taught conflict resolution skills, and they are really taught why they should follow the rules, so the value behind the behavior. Assertive discipline is also known as the take control approach to teaching. So the teacher is largely in control as opposed to there's that shared power with discipline with dignity, which operates under the philosophy that in order to gain power you have to give some away. So both students and teachers are the ones that create the rules and create the consequences, and therefore there are a lot of times there's more buy-in because students are invested. With assertive discipline, it's very, very black and white. So these are the rules, these are the consequences. You break the rule, this is the consequence that you get. There's really no room for teacher discretion. With discipline with dignity, they operate under the premise that fair isn't equal, and the individual student is taken into account to determine the most appropriate consequence for them. The way misbehavior is viewed is very different for assertive discipline and discipline with dignity. Misbehavior is viewed under assertive discipline that it is basically that student is interrupting the environment and it's impacting the teacher and it's from teaching and it's impacting the other students from learning. It's a very kind of negative view, and that student should not be allowed to do that. With discipline with dignity, it's more what is the function of the behavior, what is causing that student to misbehave. Is it factors outside of school? Is it factors going on inside of school like the environment? Is the student bored? What can we do to help that student to behave more appropriately? With assertive discipline, there are just rules. So the assertive discipline recommends, the cantors recommend having 3 to 5 rules that the students follow. With discipline with dignity, there's a value behind the rule. So the value, say for instance, would be respectful, and the rule would be raise your hand before speaking. So the students kind of associate those rules with values, which adds to that responsibility model. Here's why I need to behave. With assertive discipline, there are 3 main assertions, and Katie had mentioned those in a previous slide. But that students have the right to a caring teacher, teachers have the right to a disruption-free environment, and that they should have support from both parents and administrators, and that there is the philosophy that the most effective teachers are ones that remain in control, they are assertive, and the goal is that students can learn and teachers can teach. They learn academically, but they also learn to behave appropriately. With discipline with dignity, there are 3 key dimensions to the approach. What can the teacher do to prevent behavior problems from occurring? How can the environment be structured? How can rules and values be set up and consequences be utilized in the classroom? The next one is action. So if there is misbehavior going on, what can the teacher do to handle the situation so that the teacher doesn't have to move away from teaching and address the problem right at that time, that the teacher can move on with teaching and the students can continue to learn. And the third is the resolution piece. So how are you going to handle that student that is chronically misbehaving or has become a major disruption to the learning environment?